happiness class. Today we'll be talking about how to get the right work-life balance, finding your passion and stuff like that. Do check out previous shows at bigquestionsanswered.com. It's gone off the screen, and now we are a bit late. We're on to the next, or the first question. It's on the wrong section. Let's get to the right page. So, how do you find your passion? Is the first question. And the answer I'm going to give in short is, let me see, where have I done with it? There we go. Cool. So it's a bit of a, all my shows are about giving very different answers to what is out there, because I think what's out there is confused with a lot of bad ideas. So my answers might sound really simple, but psychologists say passion is from doing good. But then people are thinking, well, isn't passion like this work thing where you have to make money out of, your thing that makes you happy? And so that's part of the problem in this sort of materialistic society. We really limit our happiness and the idea of what is passion by these ideas that you necessarily have to immediately make money out of it. So there's sort of a couple of things I want to kind of introduce about this, besides this idea that passion should not be limited to just making money. One is that what is it that actually makes us happy? And how do we know, like, for example, I'm saying passion is from doing good. Well, psychologists have actually known this thing for a long time. So I'm not saying a very new thing. And that is that meaningful things make us happy. So if it makes sense to you somehow, according to your understanding about this makes the world a better place or something like that, that's the kind of stuff that makes us happy. And they've done lots of experiments about that. And so meaning is about making the world better for everybody. So they've done experiments where you simply, buy coffee for other people, and that makes you more happy than doing stuff for yourself, buying a coffee for yourself, which should not be surprising. If you've had lots of coffee, you don't need more. But the real problem, really, in finding our passion is overcoming our fear of what it is. We fear doing just good things because we are so overcome by other people's opinions that we deeply want to make money to impress people. That's really what our fear is, and letting go of that is the things that will allow you to truly live a passionate life, a fun and exciting life. So that's kind of basically my thoughts. What are your opinions on that?
Mm. Well, different people view passion differently. Like you view passion as in doing good for everybody else, but some people would want to benefit themselves, or if they want to benefit for others, they benefit for their own family members. Because some people think that they are the whole world, so they'll focus on themselves instead of wasting time with others. If other people are having coffee and you're not, then you're gonna be the one losing out because you're paying for their coffee.
So what
So
you're
it makes
talking
no sense
about,
to spend the money on yourself.
yeah. So what I'm talking about is psychology, which psychology is the study of what all human beings think like. So they do.
But
So
everyone is different, so you can't just say, that's I got this amount of people to do this, and they all done this." Because that's not everybody in the world. Everybody is different. Yeah, there's people who like Hitler. There's people like Joe Biden. Yeah, two completely different people, but they're still humans, but they're just
yeah,
different people.
right.
So you can't just say, this person behaves that way, so he's going to turn out that way.
I see. So as I was saying, what you're saying is basically what is taught to us in our individualistic societies, that everybody is so
Yeah,
different,
but
and
what
they
you're saying is you can
no, no, no.
calculate. what everybody's gonna do. So you can calculate who's gonna be successful in the future. You don't actually know that until it happens. You can't calculate it because everything happens in a chain. One
Right.
thing leads to another. Otherwise, you can't calculate what's gonna happen. But that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so you're wondering how is it that I can talk about everybody when in your understanding everybody is different. And what I'm saying is everybody is not as different as you imagine. So we're different in some certain skills we might have, okay, but human nature is the same for everybody. So even for example, you mentioned Hitler. Even Hitler, he didn't actually tell the German people, I'm a bad person. He didn't tell anybody I'm a bad person. What he said is, I'm actually, he said he's a savior of Germany, and he was doing according to that. So he didn't actually. So for example, he made it out that the Jews were not even human beings, so it was all right to kill them. He didn't want to say it was good to kill human beings. He was like, you know what, we just have to do this because he made it out. You know, he made all the excuses to keep himself looking like a good person. So what I'm saying is everybody deep down wants to be good. And now the other thing you said about wasting time doing good for other people, what you're saying, that is a very common thought, but people are not realizing how much damage they're doing to themselves. So the biggest killer at the moment in the West is loneliness. Okay, so that has come directly from this individualistic philosophy, which is
Yeah,
not
but then
actually,
you can
it's
balance
not
it
based
out.
on reality. It's not based on reality. It's not based on the studies by psychologists who are the experts. They're the scientists. So there's a lot of opinions people have, but they're not based on the science of how a human being works. What were you
Yeah,
saying?
but opinions are formed from experience, which is better from some computers. Computers are not humans. The way scientists and psychologists are trying to do it, they're trying to act like all humans are computers. They will have a specific code to do specific things. But people that say opinions contradicting what psychologists are saying it from experience, from what they know, from how they feel. Because not you
But
can
that's not
be
how
right
they do it.
saying
They
they don't understand,
that's not
but
how they do it. They don't ask a computer about how a human being
no,
feels.
but they try to analyze it like a computer. They think there's a set formula for everything.
So they what they do is surveys. So if
Yeah, but
if
that's not everybody. They're not gonna get a survey of 7 billion
sure, okay,
people.
let's leave that because
They get a
we
survey of the average.
sure. So let's agree to disagree on that. Okay. So what you're saying is basically against what science says. So you can have your opinion, that's fine. Okay. But science is based on, you know, lots of studies. Um,
Okay, but what I'm
and
saying is from experience.
yeah,
Science is a bunch
your
of
person.
calculations.
Sure. So what happens? Okay, so we'll talk about it a little bit, but people say they have a certain amount of experience, right? Okay, and hopefully your experience will develop because it would be really bad for a person to have the same opinion throughout their life without challenging it. Okay, but the point is that there's other people who've got collectively tons more experience than you have, okay, and they've thought about it and they've studied it, they've looked at, you know, how the brain works and so many other things. Yeah, so
If you think about
you're
it,
free to
I'm not
have
the
your
only one
opinion.
that's I'm not the only
Yeah.
one that thinks like this. The people you're saying are actually less than people are saying what I'm saying. 'Cause I'm saying what the majority are saying. You're saying what scientists are saying. If you think about how many people are scientists as a percentage in comparison to everybody else, it's at 1 or 2%. What I'm
Okay,
saying is 98
so
percent.
sure, you're
So
very
I'm
right.
most likely to be right because
Ah,
scientists get the data from the 98%.
okay,
So if
sure.
I'm the person they're getting the data from, that means I'm affecting what the scientists are saying.
Sure. So that is very interesting that you're correct. And the reason why I do this show is because I would say the majority are saying what you're saying. And because of that, the levels of depression are going so far up really quickly, okay, because the majority are behaving opposite to the way they should behave if they want to be happy. So male young people are suiciding a lot more because they follow the philosophy. This is an idea, okay, and it's basically called individualism. And because they're following that, because they're becoming really miserable. So, but I want to avoid that a little bit. Like, let's just say that's kind of this is part of the topic. Happiness is very. You're rubbing something, so don't rub that thing.
Uh,
So you're rubbing a microphone or something. It's making a noise. Anyway, so the point is that fine, you can have your opinion on how happiness works, which is fine. But I want to focus a bit more on passion itself. Um, so one thing is, what skill is it? What skill? Uh, how do you develop the skill to achieve the job? For example, if it's a job that you need to fulfill your passion through, and I'm going to say there is no one skill, because the people who are really successful in terms of making money or something, or especially let's say Nobel Prize winners. So have you heard of Nobel Prize winners, Sada?
yeah,
Yeah,
people who think they get
they
prizes.
sure. Yeah. Okay. So they are known in history for achieving like the top of their particular area of work. Okay, so they tend to have really opposite passions, opposite skills. So it's not like there's one skill, and then you can have look at if you look at Elon Musk, he's making a car, he's making a rocket, he's making software, all uses your brain in different ways. So one thing that you might connect between all the different most successful people is the skill is not one thing, but it's lots of things, and they keep learning. In fact, another thing about the most successful Nobel Prize winners are the ones who keep learning, and they keep producing things rather than just think a little bit in you know in at one stage in their life. That actually the most successful people are the people who keep learning and keep developing new skills. So there's not one skill that you need to be successful. Any thoughts about that?
I agree that there's multiple skills that you need, but no, nah, not really much to say.
Okay, sure. And so what I said in the beginning was that our biggest problem is not finding your passion. People think finding your passion is the difficult thing. That's just you do good things and you help lots of people, and you begin to experience lots of things like how so if you think your passion has to be through making money by helping people, you understand what it is people need. And that's not, you cannot do that by sitting back and watching, playing computer games. You kind of have to be in there, involved in making a difference. And you also, by doing that, you find out what you like and what you don't like doing, and what you're good at doing and what you're not good at doing. So that's how you find a skill. If that But that's not one particular skills. It's like you find the areas of skills that you're good at, and then you just keep working at them.
Yeah, but I don't
And
think that's the best idea to find your passion just by helping people, because that's just repetitive all the time, and no one, well, not a lot of people like helping people. It's not something a lot of people are passionate about. If you're passionate about it, doesn't mean others are.
sure. So if you want
People
to make
can
money,
find out what they're
if
passionate about
yeah,
when they enjoy what they are doing. They
yeah,
try new things, not just helping people, because that's one thing.
sure,
Try new things like construction, engineering, chemistry, stuff like that. That's how
mm,
you find your passion. By trying new things, and what you enjoy can later become your passion.
sure. So helping people is what makes you valuable to others. So they pay you. So that's why it's good to help people. But the last thing I want to say is to overcome your fear, which is the main thing. Overcome your fear of what true passion is, which is helping people, is to have fear of God. Now we're going to run out of time again, as usual. I thought I'd give myself more time, but run out of time. And kind of the key point, when you care more about what God thinks, which is just you to do good things, you stop caring about other people who are controlling you. Basically, we are, as psychologists tell you, we care so much about other people that we rather be miserable than stand out. And the only way to overcome that, or a very useful skill, is to um, care more about what God thinks, and then everybody else's opinion stops becoming of any value. Anyway, so the next bit is, how do you find your ideal job? So, this is all about work, so there's going to be quite an overlap. Um, and we're going to talk a bit more about service, because I like to say that the number of things I'm saying are not complicated or anything, and I do repeat a lot of things, and that's great. If you want to improve your life and there's only a few things to remember, that's great. That makes changing your life much easier. So, how do you find your ideal job? Regularly be generous in service to others. So again, I'm sure we'll be disagreeing about that, but let me kind of give some explanation on top of what I've already said before in the last question. You don't know what you want, as life should be a learning process, right? So I said, it's the key thing is, it's a process. To finding your ideal job should be a process, like anything that's useful in life. You don't achieve it in 1 second. So that's one idea. But what is that process? The process is partly finding out what makes you happy, and the other thing is developing the skills so you can achieve it. So it's kind of like two things that are continuously happening and bumping into each other. So there's things you like and the skills you have, and hopefully the skills you have are going to keep growing. Otherwise, say you got skills when you're 5 years old and you keep to those skills, then you're not going to be able to do like Elon Musk's level kind of jobs, because you can only, wipe your bum going to the toilet. That's the best you can do. It's not much use to other people. So you have to keep developing your skills and keep taking interest in the world, keep helping people. And so, yeah, any thoughts about that?
Personally, I think in order to find your ideal job, first you have to analyze lots of things about yourself. Like how much success are you aiming for in life? Are you aiming to be at the top, or average, or just above average? And then after you pick that, like, okay, what do I enjoy doing? Yeah, because an ideal job is something you can enjoy at the same time. Do you like challenges? Do you like something easy? And you pick that, and then you are like, do I want it repetitive, or do I want it different every time? Do I want an adventure type job? And then after, it's kind of like a tree at the same time. You go to one option, then another two options happen. Then if you keep on doing that, you'd find your ideal jobs.
So you say, okay, so that sounds like it should work, but I think there's an important part of that puzzle, and in understanding what it is that makes people happy. Okay. Otherwise, what happens is you're more controlled than you realize by other people. So psychologists tell us, and again, psychologists is a science, psychology is a science which is tested on thousands of people throughout history, not just like one person or one personal opinion. Okay. And what psychologists say is we care so much about other people's opinions that we rather be miserable than stand out. Okay. So you have to be really aware that your opinions of what you think you like is often controlled not by what you really makes you happy, but what other people care about. So people often go into sort of banking jobs or things where they're not necessarily making much difference to other people, but they are making money so they can buy expensive stuff so they can show off to other people. Okay. But those people tend not to be very happy, because, well, the statistics show
Yeah, but
that,
they're not only
yeah.
showing off, they can go on holidays and stuff like that. Everybody likes a holiday, yes?
Mm-hmm,
Even you. You want to go to different countries, don't you?
mm-hmm.
But how are you going to go to those different countries? You need money. How are you going to enjoy yourselves in those countries? You need money, yeah? So once you have money, you can use that to enjoy yourself, and that's good for your mental health as well. Traveling, fresh air, having fun, those types of things are worth the sacrifice. Working in a bank, let's say, and no one likes working in a bank, but if you can use the money right, yeah, then you can enjoy yourself. Not everybody just shows off. That's a few select people that show off, and some people, like, it really depends on your mental state. Like, different people act differently. Not everybody prefers to blend in with the audience. Some people like to stand out or be themselves. Those type of people have most likely better mental health
Hmm.
because they can not be affected by others. So if
So
you want to work
nobody,
somewhere,
yeah,
you work there because
sure.
you know what you're gonna get from it.
Hmm.
You can't let others do it.
So let's talk about some of those ideas. So you said there are some people who have their own opinions. They're self-made people. They're not sheep. But how many people are going to admit to you that they are sheep? Next to nobody. In fact, lots of people like to say that they are independent thinkers, right? So I've had lots of kids, especially, tell me, I'm an independent thinker. I don't know if they still do this in school, where they have their trousers half down or something, showing off their pants, and they'll be like, "I thought of that. I made that one up." It's like, no, you probably didn't actually. So a lot of people think they're independent thinkers, but their behavior seems to be just like everybody else's. And so just wearing different clothes doesn't make you an independent thinker. Um, and if you look at the pattern in those clothes, they're probably very similar to other people's. So just a little bit different with a few different colors, maybe. So you said about independent thinking, very few people are independent thinkers. And according to psychologists, the people who are really independent thinkers are the ones who've got strong principles and use those strong principles. So principles are good things you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're
Not
talking about
just,
independent thinkers as in fashion or the
no,
choices they
I'm
make.
thinking
If you're
that's the
talking about
least.
jobs, yeah, some people would work in
So I'm not talking
McDonald's
about
because they want to
jobs.
work in
I'm talking
McDonald's.
about, so the kind of test they do is, are you willing to
But
follow
this
orders?
question is about the jobs though. So I was
Yeah.
talking about jobs. I wasn't talking about other things.
Yeah, so everything you do as a person affects you become and what jobs you do. So if you've got a right positive, so for example, so we're talking about independent thinkers. If you're independent thinker, does you don't suddenly become an independent thinker only when you're thinking about jobs. That's like who you are. Do you know what I mean?
No, you can
So,
be a bit of both. You can copy others of fashion, yeah,
hmm,
because you might not have a good sense of fashion yourself, but you're not gonna, as long as that fashion is gonna make you suffer, and that fashion is gonna make you bored to death or hate yourself, yeah, which a job can do. A job can make you suffer, bored, and all of that, yeah. No one is gonna go through that just because someone else, people do, but less people are gonna do that. But when it comes to fashion, it's something else. So people are more likely to be more independent when it comes to jobs, because jobs, not everyone has the same qualifications. Not everybody can get the same job, and jobs can actually affect them more than fashion.
so okay, so independent thinking, and that's maybe like a subtopic that we would discuss a little bit. So, I would like to say I'm an independent thinker, but that doesn't mean when I go to hospital, and let's say I need brain surgery, I'll say, "Hang on, neurosurgeon, I've got my own opinions on how you should do my brain surgery." Yeah, it's
Yeah, but
like
you're not
that's not
specialized
independent.
in that.
That's right, exactly. So just because I'm allowing people, delegating certain things, it's, like
Yeah, but
letting
it's not
people,
that someone else is
that's
specialized to
not to
tell
do
you what your
with,
job is.
yeah.
It's that
So
those quizzes
yeah.
online. It's like you're not gonna take them. So, oh, I should be working at McDonald's. No, you don't just take random quizzes or something to make choices for you. That's the same as asking somebody else, "What should I do in my life?" And that's not independent thinking.
Hmm. Okay. So I'm trying to think about all the things you're saying. So we talked about independent thinking, and we don't have to agree. It's good that you kind of bringing up what a lot of people do say. So one thing you said was, what is basically independent thinking? And there I would say the way your brain works, there are different levels or hierarchies. Okay. So at the top level is like you have these principles that affect all the other things that you do. Okay. So that's why I was saying it's the people who have principles, strong principles, are who are the most independent thinking. And this is shown by experiments, like I was about to say, there's an experiment called Milgram's experiment, which is very famous repeated experiment, which means that it's kind of been proved basically that it is always true. Um, and everybody can have their opinions and disagree, but that's just their opinions, not based on facts. And they showed that the people who are independent thinkers are the ones who have strong opinions, or sorry, not just strong opinions, but they act on their strong opinions regularly before they're tested. So the particular test that was given is that in short, people were asked to kill somebody, some stranger, and most of the people did kill strangers. Okay, and it sounds really weird. Again, this is, I can explain, you can probably search Milgram and try to understand the exact details of the experiment. And of course, they didn't really kill somebody. It was just kind of, they were tricked into believing something would happen of that nature. But it was found that people with strong opinions, or not strong opinions, strong principles, are the ones who were really independent thinkers. And the rest just followed um, orders that they were given because the person was wearing a lab coat, basically, which sounds really strange, but people follow all sorts of authorities just to fit in. Um,
Yeah,
but
but in that case,
yeah,
that person wearing a lab coat, it can be their speciality. So
mm,
it's like the brain surgery idea, yeah? You're gonna listen to what the brain surgeon's telling you to, because you're not specialized in brain surgery. They are the ones that know the stuff about the brain. They know what they
right.
are talking about when it comes to that.
Sure.
Like
So
you
people
don't,
give
so
them,
of course you're
yes,
gonna
this
follow them.
this is the
A
thing
doctor
about,
prescribes your medicine. You don't
yeah.
prescribe your own medicine.
Sure. So that is the same. The excuse you're giving of following orders is the same reason why the Germans killed the Jews, because each person said, the person above me told me so, and the person above me told me so, and so they followed the orders, and that's why they did that. They did that experiment actually, because they wanted to understand why people could kill their friends and neighbors, even though it doesn't make sense to
Yeah,
do
but
that.
then they had to, or else they would be in trouble. Or Germany at the
It,
time was
mm.
going through a massive amount of chaos. So
No,
what
it wasn't
yours
really. Well,
no, it was
yeah,
pretty bad, bro. There was
yeah. Yeah.
inflation and all of that going on, yeah?
Anyway, so I want to,
Germany needed someone.
for the last minute, I just going to kind of wind up a few ideas. Appreciate all your what your input is, though. But so I used a couple of important words. I said be generous. So being generous lets you work hard in expanding your potential. And as soon as you get lazy, it's a slippery slope, and you don't expand your possibilities. And so when you're generous, you're actually you're interacting with more people, and you learn when you interact with lots of people. Our By yourself, you know very little, and what makes human being powerful is this shared intelligence. So do check out these important words. These are very important words. Shared intelligence. We don't know everything by ourselves, but we learn by interacting and learning from other people and things like that. And yeah, again, I want to repeat, happiness is through doing good things, and if you focus on that rather than being selfish, you'll find that you get better jobs that actually make you happy, rather than just make you better money, and then you end up spending all your money trying to actually be happy. So I should be repeating. You're welcome to join and ask any of your questions, any questions you have. But we do have a couple of interesting questions lined up. So let me copy that. Why do So this is actually tying into what I just said a second ago about you find a job that you don't like, um, and then you end up spending all the money that you make to somehow make yourself happy. So, why do some people spend more money than they have? So, the short answer is materialistic people can never feel their emptiness. So, what is materialistic? It's the idea or the kind of people who think that if you buy certain things, that is enough to make you happy. And so I'll just give a few ideas before letting Saleh uh, share his opinion. So, or I'm interested in what he's got to say in response to a couple of ideas here. Um, so celebrities are a great example of people who seem to have everything. Like if you're, I want fame, I want money, and I don't know what else they have, but they seem to have what other people look up to, and they are famous for suffering from depression. It's all so common to hear of X, Y, and Z celebrity in rehab again. Okay. And then if even if you're not interested in the extremes of celebrities, if you look at the general patterns, you've got this is what psychologists have been pointing out. They say, for example, in the US, um, people are getting bigger and bigger houses, but they're becoming more and more lonely in the sense that they have less and less true friends that they can rely on. And this is not psychologists somehow telling people that. This is what people are admitting. This is what they're saying themselves. Um, so just in case people don't understand how psychological experiments work, it's actually the people who the experiments are being done on. They are admitting these facts.
Yeah, but they
So
shouldn't be looked at as representatives for everybody else. Let's say
so
one in
part of
10
any
people say
scientific
that
no, so
doesn't.
part of a scientific experiment is to make sure that your surveys are representative, and so that is a very specific skill, mathematical skills. You follow certain rules. You say these people are in this category, that category, that category. So they're very careful to do these kind of experiments, and they do it over time in different cultures and things like that, right? So but that's just standard procedure when you do an experiment. So it's important to value to some extent um, what these scientists are doing because they, like you said, we have to listen to the specialists. So, but if you doubt what the scientists are doing, so you should make the effort to look into the experiments. And I do, by the way, I read a lot of research papers on happiness. So, but there's a lot of trends basically saying the more stuff people are having, the more miserable they're becoming. They're taking more drugs. The amount of antidepressants is increasing despite people having more money. So, very simple example is uh, possibly the most affluent or richest country in the world is America, and it's also got the people with the most people taking antidepressants, which is the drug you take when you're depressed. So you can kind
Yeah,
of
but not
make.
everybody in America is rich. There are lots of poor places in America, so you
Hmm,
can't really judge that. They just got a high population, and there's only a few people carrying their whole average wealth.
hmm.
Otherwise, most of them are poor, so you can't really judge like that.
Okay, so that's a really good point you made, right? Okay, so I was trying to make a very general statistic, but it is true that there are loads of people who are depressed. I mean, who are poor, or they're not rich. Okay, um, and so you'll find that there are loads of people who are on antidepressants who are rich as well. And if you do want a more more statistics, you can look at loads of countries where people are poor and they're not unhappy. So it's not really the amount of money you have. And so another way of explaining it is that, again, I can only refer to what psychologists say rather than people's opinions. Okay, but I think if you reflect, you'll see this is true for yourself. Um, that when psychologists talk about what it is that makes people unhappy, it's the poor relationships people have, not how much money. So they never really cite these things. Money is, you actually need very little of it to be happy enough. Like, you don't need tons and tons of food. In fact, the opposite is true. When you eat too much food, you actually become sick and you get diabetes. This is actually a problem that people suffer from in the West. They eat too much. So you say that, or there aren't enough, you're saying everybody in America is poor, okay, but actually they're eating so much more than they need that they're becoming sick. So it doesn't
No, but
seem
there
to
are
fit.
a lot of people that are poor. You can't just ignore that fact. That you're
Hmm.
talking about certain places.
No,
It's
I'm
like
saying that the
London, yeah.
obesity problem,
People,
yeah.
if someone's outside of London, what they're gonna assume is a bunch of posh white people drinking tea, but that's not actually London. There are
Hmm.
lots of bad places in London,
So I'm not
but
talking
you
about
don't
what
know that from outside of the world
sure.
because
Yeah,
what
it's
you're facing is stereotypical and
I'm not
what's
talking about
being pushed
stereotypical. So
onto
I'm
you.
not talking about movies. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
but you're not.
statistics by scientists. So
Yeah,
there's
well,
a
not
different.
everybody in America is fat though. Lots of them are poor as well. But
Right,
you're just looking
okay.
at a certain part of America.
Sure. They do have a massive obesity problem, so it's not a secret. But anyway,
They do, but it's
um
not everybody, and there's still a
that's
large
true.
amount that don't.
Sure, statistics are a general description of what's happening. It's true. Okay. So my experience, what else is worth pointing out? So yeah. So as I said earlier on, that another study, and we can talk about it logically. One study is that, uh, and I keep repeating it because it's the one I remember because it's so simple. Is that people become happier when they're buying somebody else a coffee than buying themselves a coffee. Now, why would that make sense if you think about it? Well, first of all, most people are not starving, right? And so, especially if they're buying a coffee, that's not a thing you do to save yourself from starvation because they didn't really fill you up in the first place, right? So it's an extra thing to have, okay? And so, why would buying a coffee for somebody else make you happier? Because psychologists tell us again, and you can possibly deny it if you want, but we are social beings, and that's one of the key things that we depend on to be happy. And so when we have more interactions and more interesting interactions, like, oh, here's a coffee, I don't even know you, that's just a weird conversation that could, uh, you know, mm, you could have fun talking to each other, talking to somebody new. That's one idea. But also, it builds onto this very important thing that a famous psychologist known as Viktor Frankl, his name is Viktor Frankl, he said that it's meaning that makes us happy. So, meaning as in something good that makes sense to you. If you do it, it will make you happy. So, giving something to somebody else makes you happy because you're doing something that connects people in a broken society. Society is so lonely, this is again statistically true, that if you do something to build bridges between people, that must feel good. Anyway, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, the way there's two different ways that giving coffee example could work. Number one, you give someone else your coffee instead of having coffee yourself. Yeah, that's not good. But if you're going around, yeah, and you're financially stable well, and you're buying coffee for everybody else, and that's fine. People do that, and you can feel better by yourself. But a lot of the time, let's say it's not just coffee, like you want to you're buying a car for somebody, but you're not extremely rich. So yes, they'll be happy. I'll make you a bit happy giving them a car, but in the long term, you're like, I wish I had that car. That's not really the best feeling in the world because you're just gonna have some. They're gonna have something that you don't have after that.
So that's interesting. So you're kind of, I think there are two
If you have
interesting.
it, then you can give something worse away.
Okay. So I'll focus on this idea. If you have it, then you can give something away, right? So we actually practically do not need much to survive. Okay. So we do have enough to give stuff away, but we keep telling ourselves we need the next thing, another
Yeah,
thing.
but there's
Uh,
difference between survival and living, if you know what I mean. Survival, you just need to have, let's say, cheeseburger and a glass of water every day. That's all you need. Literally, McDonald's cheeseburger, glass of water. That's, let's say, you spend £2 a day. Yes, that's all you need. Yes, but living is you buy yourself a nice meal, you enjoy it more than one meal, that's 3, 4 meals. You buy yourself a nice bed. You can't sleep on the floor or outside like a homeless person, but that's surviving, that's not living. People in society nowadays have advanced to a point where we have the ability to live instead of just survive. So not everything we do is for survival.
I get what you're saying.
People
So
try
what
to
you're
enjoy
saying
themselves
is
too.
your idea of living is collecting more and more things, having more and more food and stuff like that. And I'm saying that that doesn't make you actually happier
I'm
by
happy
having
when
these
I
things.
eat. Buy me food, I'll be happy. You can test that in real life.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So that's what most people think. So it's very interesting. So and you can be adamant like this is exactly how I feel when I buy more and more food and I stuff my face, I get happier. Okay. And we can claim that, but and I think and we do believe that actually. I think that's one of the problems that we believe that, but then bad things happen to us in the long run having that sort of very that way of thinking, um but it's kind of not listening to how we feel deep down.
So you're
um
saying that I'll be lying to myself deep
mm,
down. You're
yeah,
deciding that I'm lying to myself in my head. So
yeah,
are you gonna open up my head, look into my brain, and say that I'm lying to myself? There's a
right.
hadith, yeah, from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
So
wasallam, yeah.
saying of Prophet
Uh,
Muhammad, yep, yep.
and what happened was a companion was they were in a war, yes,
A friend
and
of
then
Prophet Muhammad, yep, or yeah, companion of
yeah,
Prophet Muhammad, yeah.
and then the enemy was on the floor, and then before he got killed, he said, "I'm sorry, please forgive me. I want to convert to Islam." Yeah, but the companion didn't listen and killed him. And then
Mm.
afterwards, he got told off by Prophet Muhammad. Do you know why? It's
Yeah, I
because
understand,
he
because
said,
he's, yeah, go on.
Ed, that did you open his heart? Did you see inside if he's telling the truth, or did you just say that out of fear? How would you know? And that's the same situation. You're assuming that you know if I'm truly happy. Because personally, I'm not gonna lie to myself when I say I'm truly happy when I get given free food. Yeah, I would take it and I'd be happy. Yes,
So
if
I'll give you
someone
an
gave me free
idea.
food, I
I
gave it
get what you're saying.
away,
I
I
get what
would
you're
not be
saying.
that
So I need
happy.
to respond so it gives value to people listening because I think everybody gets what you're saying. Yeah. So the point is, let's get if you everybody's level of conscious or self-awareness is different. Okay. Hopefully you keep developing it. So if we look at your baby sister, she'll say, I'm happy, you know, doing whatever I want, pooing my pants or something. Let me poo in my pants as much as I want. Let me jump off the table. Why are you telling me not to do that? Why can I do my suicidal moves, which we know she's always trying to do? Okay. So that's her awareness. Okay, but it doesn't mean it's true. She wants to eat lots of sugary stuff all the time, but that doesn't mean it really makes her happy. So certain awareness of herself is lacking in that sense. So we're always develop that, and we can develop that by listening to scientists who have studied more
Yeah, but
about
you're
us
giving more
than
extreme
we do.
examples. The
No, I'm trying to
examples
give a
you
simple
gave
example.
was if
Yeah.
she jumps on a table, she's gonna get hurt afterwards. But if someone gives me a kebab, yeah, and I eat one, yes, that's not gonna kill me. The worst thing that can happen is I choke on it and die. Yeah, but
Sure.
that's not gonna happen. And so it's
Sure.
different from
Sure.
getting
So
hurt
let's move on
instantly
to the next
after
one. 'Cause I'm
something's
trying
not
to keep it.
unhealthy.
Cool. Okay, so how do we discuss LGBTQ issues without causing offense? So this is obviously a very important topic at the moment because there's a lot of debate, a lot of issues, lots of all sorts of problems coming about by people not listening to each other, and this is, possibly causing all sorts of societal problems from different points of view. Even the Olympics are suffering because men are claiming to be women and winning all the women's Olympic golds, etc. So all sorts of issues arising. So it's worth discussing this. And we also, I mean, as a general, as a wider problem, is society keeps breaking into more and more factions, and there's less and less unity, and that itself causes lots of problems like loneliness. Fights within society, and we're more easily controlled by uh, other groups by being split up in this way. So that's just a tiny bit of the problems relating to this. And so, how do we deal with that? And I'll say, my friends who might be in this category of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, whatever friend, people who I have made friends with, love discussing happiness choices with me. So the point is, the short answer, which I'll break down into lots of important parts, is that you got to be friends with people before you can even think of giving them advice. Um, and another part of that, I say one of the biggest problems is that the kind of people who are giving this advice are religious people who don't really understand their own religion. Um, and what I mean by that is they think God has made up all sorts of random rules to try to get people into hell. And this is, but in reality, they're very practical rules that are in line with nature that God Himself has made, that makes life easier. So, and it's not just focused on one particular issue, like if you're gay or lesbian. It's all sorts of tiny things, like not eating too much food, smiling at people, lots and lots of subtle things that are, all these rules are in line with your nature. And we have, one of our biggest problems is to underestimate the complexity of nature and how how high tech our bodies are. And so if you got a high tech device, it needs an equally careful appreciation of how it should be used. So how we use ourselves shouldn't be random. And because we're using ourselves randomly, or just doing random things like eating too much food or whatever makes us happy in the short term, we're suffering in the long term. um, so that's a kind of a general principle, and it's not just a theory. So, for example, people who are indulging in this kind of behavior, just as a very, very broad kind of point, are suffering from more sexually transmitted diseases like HIV and AIDS and things like that. So that's just so one problem is people, religious people, don't understand how to talk to other people because they don't understand the meaning behind some of these teachings. And the second thing is that people themselves, generally, the society has, despite knowing so much about science, do not appreciate how we actually function, how precise our bodies function. So, for example, if we simply walk backwards, our bodies are not designed to walk backwards. So we harm our bodies by not functioning precisely in the way they're supposed to. That's two. And then the kind of the last point is the sort of social issues of how we behave towards each other. Like, we don't need to be rude. That's one side, but also we don't need government enforcing, like they are at the moment in the UK and many other places, enforcing that we do behave in a certain way, like it's forcing people to wave the LGBT flags in prisons, and footballers have to wear a certain, you know, band or something on their arms to say they support something when they don't. I think that actually has a negative effect. So, a couple of points there. Let's get your opinions on uh, why do you think, what's your opinion on religious people telling other lesbian and gay people what they should and shouldn't do?
Hmm. Uh,
And you can stick to what you don't say exactly what you think. So I've got one of the reasons why I got Saleh, my son, to talk about this is because I know he likes saying cheeky things. And so I don't necessarily want him to repeat those cheeky things, but I know it's kind of important to him. So you can say whatever you think, but try not to be too rude. Go on. Just say whatever you think.
so basically,
Because you
I
represent a lot of people, especially kids your age, who say things, "Oh, that's gay," and that and make fun of gay people. So just say anything you want, and then we'll talk about it in that direction. Go on, but without being too rude. Yeah.
hmm, I basically eh, the religious people, like, they got a point because they're not just making some random stuff up. The LG something, yeah,
Yeah.
those people are the type of people that are pressured into trying to be independent, and they're trying to be special, so they're just trying to be as weird as possible because they're being pressured into being independent, and that just makes them that makes them different to other people. So it's like, hmm, yeah, it's not really that good because they're just trying to be different, but in a bad way, eh, and they're trying to
Right.
enforce it
Okay.
on others.
Sure. So let's go into that a little bit because one of the things you're saying that's really important to point out. So you're saying that people who are lesbian, gay, or whatever, that's just a personal choice. Okay. And so I want to agree with you, but it's very important to explain that scientifically. And so some people who are religious who are rude about it and enforce their opinion, that is not what, from my understanding of
Well, I
religion,
don't think they should have an opinion in the first place.
who.
The LGBTQ people, they shouldn't. If you're that dumb, you shouldn't have your opinion. Like,
So you have
certain
to,
people
okay.
deserve freedom of speech. At
Okay,
that
so there
point,
to
you're
some,
just bit like not alright.
okay. All right,
So it's
all
like,
right, so you have to think carefully. Yeah, okay. So there are very clever people who are in that category of lesbian, gay, whatever. There's all sorts of people who do that. For
yeah,
example,
but all clever people, some of them have mental problems. Einstein wasn't. He was really clever in certain stuff, but he was a bit lost.
hmm.
There's lots of millionaires
So
and
okay,
billionaires.
so
They all have mental problems, that they suffer from depression and stuff like that.
right,
And
so
one
it
way
can
can
get
be
sure. It can get
turning
very
different.
complicated. It can get very complicated if you start saying one person is allowed freedom of speech and another isn't, because then who decides that? And you're saying even very clever people should not have freedom of speech.
If you're
So
causing
that's
trouble with your freedom of speech, like the bad type of unnecessary trouble, like getting people in trouble for no good reason, just because they're offended in some sort of way, because it's making people weaker and more prone to being verbally abused.
all
Uh,
right.
if you're allowing somebody to hurt you verbally, then that's not good. That means
Sure.
you're just getting weaker, and that's not progress. That's the opposite. It's
Right.
evolving
So
backwards.
right. So that's very interesting. So what you're saying is that people get offended really easily about stuff that you think doesn't matter, and therefore a lot of other people are being, you know, stop from their freedom of speech, which is justified. Yeah, so you're saying, for example, you're claiming there's the people who are lesbian and gay, whatever, and they're being too sensitive, while the other people have a justified opinion and they should be able to say whatever they want.
They're
And
trying to go against what's normal and make them who aren't normal by overtaking everybody else. So
hmm,
they don't trust on equality, even though some might want we just want to be equal and stuff like that. But a
hmm,
lot of them want more. They want to be more than equal. They want to be in control of everything, which is
right.
what's
So
happening now. Such a small group of people have such a large effect.
that is a very interesting point of view. In many ways, I agree. For example, so many people are forced to wear certain colors. So, for example, there's our local prison has to wave the LGBT flag, even though probably most of the people are not, you know, uh most people do not choose to be that in the first place. So you're right, it's a very small minority who are deciding how what people should learn in school and things like that, right? So the what you're demonstrating is sort of a divide that we need to br- uh, bridge, because if we just continuously hate on the other group and say those people don't have rights and we do, that first of all logically doesn't seem to work, because then
You
that starts.
force them to see the truth.
Yeah, anyway, so I kind of know you're joking, because you know you can't force people to do things, but
You kind of can though, like because they gotten too soft within the society. So if you
mm,
put them in a more tougher place, then they would naturally revert to a more tougher state instead of being weak and then saying, I'm bored, let's change my gender. Yes? People who are bored or too comfortable in this society, they
mm,
can't be tough enough to stick to who they are. So if you
right.
throw them in the prison or something, then they're gonna learn that how to be tougher and stuff like that. They're
Right.
not just
So what
gonna
I'm going to try to
be
do,
who they are.
because the time is running out, I'm going to try to summarize a lot of the thoughts. So it's good you shared some thoughts, but I think there's so many important things to quickly point out. Okay. So what is it? So you got religious people, when they give their opinion, if they really want to make a difference, they need to get people on side. That's one thing. So they need to be friends with people. And then they need to realize also that there is, at least in Islam, you're not allowed to force people. There's a verse of the Quran saying there's no compulsion in matters of religion. Okay, so that's another thing. Um, and you should not just focus, if you want to give advice, you shouldn't just focus on that one particular thing, because we all have all sorts of faults, and each fault affects the other. So I would say one of the many problems that people in this, say, group suffer from is having multiple relationships, which causes multiple short-term relationships, and that is, in short, a cause of a lot of depression. It's not good and healthy for you. And so, if you talk about working on the idea of how relationships should work and what should be the link in those relationships, it shouldn't just be sex, for example, which is often the case, but not always the case in those. But statistically, it is more common in this group. Then you're going to suffer from not just physical problems, physical health problems like AIDS, but also mental health problems, which is again more common in this particular group. So yeah, so just a better understanding, and as I say, I just want to round off this thing in the last few seconds. That I've got lots of friends who are lesbian and gay, and they were very interested in Islam. And just because I talked to them in a scientific and kind and caring way, and I cared about them as human beings, and I didn't just focus on one particular issue, that they found very helpful and useful. And I've even done videos to demonstrate, where one particular person said exactly what I was saying. So anyway, thank you, Saleh. Saleh, I always encourage Saleh, my son, to be as aggressively giving his opinions, because people are also very, very shy about giving their opinions. This show is about people really saying what they think, so that those things can be discussed out in the open. Because if you have just thoughts in your head, and you don't challenge them, they could be maybe illogical thoughts. But anyway, thank you, Saleh. Really appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Please do, thank you for watching. If you're watching the show, do press the like button to promote the show if you liked what you watched and you thought it was of value. And do join me next week. We'll talk about more issues like this. And do, of course, in the comments, if you've got questions of your own, we can discuss them next time, or even join next time in the live show and ask there and then. Bye. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you.
Bye.